jolle sa sey bi yango sa xeli siki sak noni bëgg la fakal ori sekkel fini wutelo jamono metti no
Thank you very much for joining me here on Facebook. Thank you. I appreciate all of you coming and really listening to what I have to say. As I said before, I would do a quick Facebook video to talk about the situation in the country. As usual, we try as much as possible to get both sides of the story, but to also really try as much as possible to understand the dynamics of the situation. And I think that's very important. I'm gonna talk in English, and then I will, of course, also talk in the local languages soon. But I'm gonna start in English because I think it's very important that we appeal to each other, but also that others who do not understand English can also understand what I'm trying to, who don't understand our languages can understand what I'm trying to say here. At the moment, we have a crisis. Our hospitals are at a standstill. Our doctors are on strike. And the reason for that strike, of course, is not just the words of the minister, but the actions of the minister and the government in helping or making healthcare a priority in Gambia. And this is very important. It's very, very important for us to understand why, because doctors have a duty to care. Doctors have a duty or a responsibility to really to care and to provide care. But if those caregivers are pushed to the extreme, and this has been going on, of course, for more than even President Barrow's administration inherited a very bad and decaying healthcare system in the country. I used to remember during the Jawara days when people will come from Senegal to come and seek treatment in Gambia because it was cheaper, because the facilities were available. And of course, we had not just medication, but qualified professional doctors, and they were given the right incentives and provided the right incentives to be able to do their jobs. And that's very important. That is very important. Healthcare cannot be underrated. Healthcare is, I think, the backbone of any country. And to have a healthcare system that does not work, that is something that is very serious, and that is something that we need to take care of. And we need to talk about in a way that we can understand and also take into consideration some of the things that are happening. So like I said, I try to get as much information as possible to be able to really have an informed show, to be able to talk to you about what is going on, because I think it's very important for us to realize that being loud will not solve this problem. Insulting doctors will not solve this problem. Insulting government will not solve this problem. We always say this, and we are going to continue to say this. What worked when we were fighting dictatorship will not work now, because we are in a democracy. You have every right to talk. You have every right to voice your opinion. But I think it's very important as a nation that we try and understand, or try and come together to realize that the talking, the screaming, all of these things were during a time where we were fighting when we were fighting very difficult, under the very difficult circumstances. We need to move on to a mindset of now realizing that we have to walk collectively. We have to come together and walk. We Gambians have, from time immemorial, we should now recognize that when we come together as one, when we walk towards a common goal, when we are together, when we are united and we walk together, we achieve great things. We achieve wonderful things. We do wonderful things together as a nation, as a people. And that is something that we have to harness. That power in us as Gambians, as people, as citizens, that is what we need to really tap into now when we have a crisis. Like I said, this crisis will not be solved by blaming the doctors. It will not be solved by blaming government, because this is something that has been inherited, that has been going on for a long time. But it can be solved by realizing and recognizing that these people have valid concerns. These doctors have valid concerns. One of their main duties, or their creed, is the duty to protect, to preserve lives. And this is something that they have been hindered from doing for 22 years. We have called these doctors all sorts of names, all of us. Our hospitals are incompetent, you will hear us say. Our doctors are unqualified or not qualified to do the job that they're supposed to do. Did we ever sit down as a people to listen to the concerns of these doctors, to listen to the concerns of these nurses, these caregivers, people who have sacrificed their time, went to medical school for 7 years of their lives? Most of their colleagues, when they do that, they leave and go to Europe and all these other places and get very good jobs and work. These people are in Gambia sacrificing for us, sacrificing under very difficult situations. So we need to be able to have some sort of middle ground to be able to mitigate these problems at the moment. We have to be able to have somebody or someone who will tell the doctors yes, and this is where our health minister failed us. Whether we want to accept it or not, our health minister not only failed the Gambians, she also failed the doctors that she is supposed to represent and protect and work towards their interests, for them to be motivated to do the jobs that they're supposed to do. Our health minister failed. So whether we accept that or not, that is the situation. The government needs to accept that the person that they put in charge of health, the person that they put in charge of looking after the doctors, she failed in her duty to do the right thing and say the right thing that will motivate and help a profession or a group of people who are really suffering under very difficult situations. And we have to accept that. Now, to the doctors on strike, We have to first of all say to you, I have to say to you that we understand your concerns. We understand your concerns. I'm sorry, I have a very bad flu, so sometimes I might need to do, but we have to be able to tell the striking doctors that we understand their concerns. We understand that they want to do the best for the country. They want to do the best for the people. They want to do their best to protect and preserve lives and help to save lives. And we understand that they're doing these things at a very difficult task, because, of course, they have a duty to save and preserve lives, and thousands of lives depend on them. Thousands of lives depend on you. And I know you know that. I know you understand this duty to save and preserve lives. And this is why you're angry, you're upset, and we understand, and you have every right to be. Because if the person that is supposed to help you, if the person that is supposed to be your voice stands there in front of the people and says these kind of things about you, when you're doing everything to work under very difficult situations, that is the most demotivating thing anybody can live with. That is the most demotivating thing that anybody can understand or try to. And you are professionals. You are professionals. You went to 7 years of medical school. That is a huge sacrifice. And instead of going abroad and getting very good jobs abroad, you stayed at home. You stayed at home because you understand your duty to save and preserve lives. And you stayed at home because you felt that you have to give back. So to have the minister, the person that is supposed to be your voice, the person that is supposed to understand your concerns, the person that is supposed to fight in government, in parliament, in cabinet, with the president to say that I need these people to get what the tools that they need to be able to do their jobs, to have that person turn around and blame you for the failures of 22 years, for the failures of the government to provide. We have a problem. And like I said, the health minister failed, because she should have realized that the first thing she should have done is sit down with you and listen to your concerns and take that to parliament and take that to the president and take that to the general population and have us understand what is really happening in that healthcare system. So we first of all, to our doctors in Gambia, we apologize. We apologize for the failure. We apologize for not recognizing our people. We apologize for not respecting professionalism. We apologize for putting you in a situation where you have to save lives, you have to do your jobs under very difficult situations, under very difficult conditions. Yet you persevere. Yet you try as much as possible to do what is right for the country, to do what is right for your fellow citizens. So today, we are begging you. We are begging you. And we are asking you to think about that duty to save and preserve lives. And the thousands of Gambians and non-Gambians who living in the Gambia who depend on you to go to save their lives. We appeal to you on behalf of those people. We appeal to you on behalf of those people to go back and do the right thing for the Gambians. We understand. We understand from the depth of our being. We understand the situations and the conditions that you live in, and that you continue to provide care under these difficult circumstances. The only thing we can do is appeal to you. We have to appeal to you. And I talk about this from a very, like I said, when I want to do a show, I try as much as possible to get information, to talk to the people affected. And you talk to these doctors, you talk to these nurses, you talk to these auxiliary people in the hospital. I mean, you will not believe the conditions that these people operate under. They tell you that in the middle of an operation, the light goes off. In the middle of an operation, You're trying to save a life. You're trying to preserve a life. And in the middle of that operation, light goes off. And these concerns that these doctors have, when this light goes off, they take out their cell phones. They take out their mobile phones, and they put on these touch lights that are on the mobile phones to see what they're doing on those operating tables. These are very difficult situations. And if the health minister does not recognize and understand this and respect these professionals and help them to do their jobs better, then she has failed. She has failed not only the doctors, but she has also failed the people. And in as much as we sit here and try to blame anybody, we have to try and say the truth. And when I come here and I'm speaking to you, I try as much as possible to talk from a position, not only from an informed position, but to also come and tell you the truth from the sources or the people that I talk to, the people affected. Imagine a doctor trying to save lives, and in the middle of operating on a patient, the electricity goes off, and he takes out from his pocket his mobile phone, his cell phone. Imagine, he tells me, in terms of infection, you take out your cell phone from your pocket, you're trying to save lives. The nurses take out their cell phones from their pockets, they put on their little touch lights that are on the phones, and they use that to try and save a life. Those are very difficult situations. I spoke to a nurse who is also an anesthesiologist, and she tells me that what do you call it? An endotracheal, I think it's called, is a tube that you insert inside a patient when they're operating. That tube is a single-use tube. I'm sure Ifinyasi and others, I'm not very technical in terms of health instruments and stuff, but I think she said it's called an endotracheal tube. I think that's what she said it's called. An endotracheal tube. That is a single-use tube that these nurses use and insert inside the patient when they're obviously preparing the patient for operations and stuff like that. That tube, they reuse in Gambia. A single-use tube that is supposed to be used once, an endotracheal tube, I think that's what it's called, that you're supposed to use once on one patient and you throw it away. Our nurses, because they are so constrained, because they do not have the equipment that they need, they will use this tube on a patient and then they will go and wash it. They will wash these tubes, flush down water on these inside these tubes to wash it so that they can use it for another patient to try and save another life. Do you understand the difficulties that these doctors and nurses, the difficulties that they work under? Health Minister Sophie Lowe, do you understand these conditions? Have you ever sat down with these nurses and these doctors to try and understand their conditions? So they take these single-use tubes. These tubes are used when they're doing these operations, etc. They use these tubes, inserted inside the patient to help in, I don't know, in their breathing or whatever. These tubes should be single-use. These nurses are so constrained. They take these endotracheal tubes, use it with one patient, wash it for use with another patient to try and save another life. And she tells me the risk of patient-to-patient transmitting diseases and everything is so huge with this practice, and they know it. They know it because even the nurses themselves, they will tell you that I would not want these tubes to be used on me if I was sick. But we do not have a choice because there is no equipment or no facility other than this one tube that we have to reuse. So this improper use of tools is something that these people deal with on a daily basis at the hospital. They tell you themselves that if I was sick and they take these endotracheal tubes and use it on me, I would not want that, but then we do not have a choice. Things like single-use gloves that you put on, gloves, which are single-use. Our nurses will take these gloves and you reuse them to be able to save lives. You go to the accident and emergency in Gambia, and they don't even have a thermometer to take a patient's temperature. A simple thermometer. You go inside a ward. You go inside a ward at the IVTH, and they do not have a blood pressure machine to be able to even check somebody's blood pressure. Now tell me, are these the kind of conditions that our doctors and our nurses are supposed to save lives? So when they have a new health minister, they expect from her that she will do what I have done today. Sit with them, talk to them, talk with them, not talk at them. Because approach is very important. Approach is very important. When you come at me and you talk at me, you don't talk to me or with me. Your response will be very different. So approach is very important. The first thing, and we kept saying this, even when Sophie Lowe was employed to begin with, there was, I think it was on Freedom Radio, Panderi wrote about it, Gainako Radio wrote about it. We spoke about the fact that the health minister did not visit RVTH, has not sat down with the doctors to hear their concerns, to speak to them and understand how she can help them to work and achieve some sort of standards or results. We have all been saying this. Sophie Lowe has not sat down with the doctors to talk to them, to understand when she was employed as health minister. And that's the first thing that you do. Let's be honest. That's the first thing that Sophie Lowe should have done. Sophie Lowe should have sat down with the doctors and the nurses and visited our health facilities and spoke to them about their concerns, about their issues, to be able to understand where they're coming from, to be able to understand what is happening in that country. Anyway, so they take these tools, these single-use tools, these doctors and nurses. Sometimes doctors don't even have the gloves to protect themselves. So imagine you're operating on a patient. You don't know if that what kind of diseases you as a doctor or a nurse can get from that patient, and you do not have the gloves to even protect you. You do not even have these single-use aprons that you put on to protect you. These are all concerns at that hospital and all the other facilities, health facilities in Gambia. The operating room is not, the operating room that has been at RVH has been there since the colonial times. And that's the operating room they still use. That's the operating room that they still use to operate on patients without equipment, without anything. These nurses and doctors are still using oxygen tanks that you refill. So they have to take these refill tanks that you go to Dakar and you refill these tanks and you bring it. And these are the tanks that they're still using at the hospital. And I'll just continue. So I spoke to this nurse and I said, and she tells me, we have very good surgeons. We have very good doctors. But imagine you're operated on. In Gambia, they do not have a post-op room that they can take people that have been operating. They do not have these post-op rooms that when you're operated on, you go to a post-op room and you're there, you're observed, and it minimizes infection, etc., so that at least you heal before you go to the main ward where other patients are, and you risk these, you risk getting, of course, infections and everything because you have patients in the same room. So in Gambia, they don't have a post-op room. So when somebody is operated on, they take them back to the main ward with all the other patients, with all the other infections there. So what happens? So what happens is that these patients die from infections, not from the operations being a failure, but from the infections that they get from being with other patients who they should not be with. Thank you. These are some of the concerns. These are some of the concerns. The right drugs are not available to treat Gambians. And when we talk, we blame, of course, always the nurses and the doctors. They're incompetent, they're this, they're that. But imagine, most of the people that are leaving the Gambia medical school, most of our doctors, these doctors that have studied for 7 years in medical school in Gambia, they leave Gambia now and go to UK, go to America, and all these other places. And they go through these residency exams, these exams to gain residency into these hospitals, etc. And these doctors who have qualified in Gambia, who graduated from Gambia, are doing better than their peers that come from Ghana and all these other places. So yes, our doctors are qualified. Our nurses are qualified. They have the right education, the right theory that it takes. But you know what they lack? The equipment, the support, the recognition, the respect. Imagine if Sophie Lowe sits down today and says, okay, the doctors have taken away or stolen our medicines. They're the ones that are opening pharmacies and stealing our medicines. We sit down here in the West or in Gambia and we insult these health professionals. We insult these health professionals. We insult these people who have spent 7 years in medical school. We insult these nurses who have spent 2-3 years in nursing school, getting qualified, who instead of leaving like everybody else is doing for greener pastures, they're staying in their country trying to do the best to protect, to preserve and save lives. Because we do not understand their situation. We do not understand. And they tell me, I spoke to a lot of nurses at the RVTH, and they tell me doctors do not even see medicines. Doctors do not deal in medicines. Doctors do not deal in medicines. Medicines are dealt with by the pharmacist and by the nurses that take these things by the nurses that take these drugs and give it to and administer to the patients. The doctors write prescriptions. So if Sophie Lowe wants to blame somebody for medications going missing, she has to ask the central pharmacy what they are doing in terms of these medicines. She has to ask the central pharmacy how they are accounting for this medication. If you provide or you supply medication from the central pharmacy, where does it go to? Sophie Lowe should know that. These are basic things. These are basic things. But if the pharmacies themselves do not provide the medication, they're telling you there's no budget. Yaya Jammeh gave himself a contract to have these medicines provided by him. And he does not, he takes the money and does not provide any sort of medication. What are the doctors supposed to do? Sehu Sedili, I know you're talking about Sophie Lowe doing a nationwide tour of the hospitals, but that was after everybody screamed. Even the doctors spoke about her not going to visit them. That's a fact. That's a fact. Everybody here was talking about the fact that Sophie Lowe was employed for how many months, and she never went to any of those healthcare facilities to visit. That's not something that we can dispute here. So in as much as Sehu Sedili, you want to say that these are things that are that is, she did this tour. She did the tour after the outcry from a lot of Gambians that were saying that she did not visit these healthcare facilities. So if she visits these healthcare facilities and she knows their concerns and she speaks to the doctors and the nurses and the auxiliary nurses, etc., then that should even give her more of a knowledge and an understanding of what is happening in our healthcare system, for her not to sit down and make statements that will jeopardize not just the work of the doctors, but also the way that they're perceived outside. So I want us to be honest with ourselves. We cannot encourage dialogue if we continue to insult the people who sacrifice their lives for us. We cannot encourage dialogue if we do not recognize the problems and the constraints that these doctors, nurses, and auxiliary people have at the hospital. And we cannot encourage dialogue if we continue to blame the victims, and this is what we're good at doing. This is what we're good at doing. Us Gambians, it's very hard for us to recognize and appreciate professionalism. It's our problem. We do not recognize our own. We take Cuban doctors from Cuba, we take Syrian doctors from Syria, and we provide them with housing, we give them cars, whilst our Gambian doctors are standing at Westfield at Brikama Junction under the sun, trying to get into taxis to come to work. So let's be honest with ourselves. And this is why when we talk about New Gambia, we talk about the fact that we have to get away from the mindset of valuing foreigners, of valuing strangers more than we value ourselves, of valuing people from other countries and other people more than we value our own professionals. We sit here and celebrate. When Gambians go abroad, they excel. When Gambians go abroad, they excel. These doctors and nurses that you are insulting on Facebook everywhere, if they leave Gambia today and go abroad, they will pass all these exams and get into these residency programs, and they will excel and they will be recognized for their talent. Whilst in Gambia, they are denigrated, they are demotivated, and they are insulted. This is a fact. Let's recognize this and stop this. We have to change our mindset. When we talk about New Gambia, we cannot continue with the status quo. We have to recognize Gambians. We have to recognize talent. We have to recognize that these people went to law school, to medical school for 7 years. And instead of staying in that medical school and leaving medical school, and most of our doctors and nurses are abroad because they don't get the recognition that they deserve in our own country. They do not get the respect that they deserve. They do not get the remuneration that they deserve. This is a fact. Today, everybody on Facebook is celebrating the likes of Draman Toure, who died just a couple of days ago. Somebody who celebrated abroad for his professionalism, for his knowledge. And when he comes to Gambia, we frustrate him. We frustrate him. We don't give them contracts. When they come to do the work to try and contribute, we frustrate our people. So let's not sit here and continue this trend. This has to stop. I'm appealing to us as Gambians. We cannot continue. We cannot continue this trend of disrespecting each other. We cannot continue this trend of not recognizing talent. We cannot continue this trend of this blame games. We have to stop this. We have to come together and walk. And we have to recognize when people are working and putting in their efforts. We cannot continue doing this. This is why we're always talking and advocating for the new Gambian. It's not about new Gambia anymore. The new Gambia is here. What we need is the new Gambian that is going to occupy those positions. What we need is the new mindset that is going to take our country forward. We cannot do it if we continue this mindset of, oh, don't strike, don't do this, don't do that, or this. No. And it's just and it's not just doctors. It's across the board. It's across the board. We do not recognize talent. We have Gambians who are greatest economists, and they are languishing here in the West, doing nothing. I mean, they're doing their best here, but imagine what they could have done for our country. We have great economists. We have great technological people that can come and transform our technological platforms. But what do? We do not recognize them. We insult them. We belittle them. We belittle their talent. We belittle their professionalism. So when we sit here to talk, and I always tell you, when I come here to talk, I don't look at what pleases, and people might think that yes, you would only look at what pleases the government. No, I look at what is in the best interest of Gambians, and I want to come and speak to you from an informed position. It's important. It's important that you take the time to speak to these doctors, to speak to these nurses, and to ask them, what are your concerns? And to tell them, we recognize and appreciate you. We recognize and appreciate your struggle, but you have a duty to care, to save lives. And right now, thousands of lives depend on you. So we're appealing to you. Approach is very important. Approach is very important. The way you speak to somebody, the way you approach somebody, the kind of respect you give to somebody, that is very important. That is very important. You're telling me that a doctor that is trying to save lives, that doesn't even have gloves to wear to protect himself or herself, you're telling me that you should sit here and continue to insult that doctor? You're telling me that a doctor who, when he is operating on a table, will take out his own cell phone when the electricity goes off and use the torchlight on that cell phone to try and see what he's doing or she is doing. You tell me that you can sit here and insult that person after the health minister insulted that person, after the health minister said she has gone on a tour and spoken to those people and still does not understand their concerns and comes back and insults them. You're telling me that you can sit down here and continue to insult those people and they will do their jobs, they will be motivated to save you and everybody else in that country? Come on. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be honest with ourselves. Dialogue takes an approach. When you come to dialogue with me, if the first thing you do is insult me, you have already shut down that door. We cannot speak. We see it all the time on Facebook. When somebody comes and insults me, Mama Lingan Sar, you this, the moment you start from that position, you have lost me. I will not dialogue with you. I will not speak to you because you have already disrespected me. You have to understand that this world, negotiation is important. Respect is important. The way that you approach and speak to people is important. The way that you approach problems is important. The government cannot go to these doctors and say, okay, go back to work, you have to save lives. No. President Barrow, the first thing your negotiator should do, is to go to those doctors and say, thank you. We appreciate you. We recognize your concerns. But we have taken over from 22 years of decadence, of dictatorship, of mismanagement. We cannot solve all these problems at once. But you have a duty to save and care and save and preserve lives. And we are appealing to you to go and do that whilst we work on your concerns. Yes, They have concerns and they have the right to voice those concerns, and they have the right to be respected. So whoever the government negotiator is, the first thing, the approach that he or she should have taken is to say thank you and sorry. This government, this Barrow government of 1 year, we recognize your efforts. We appreciate your efforts. But you know what? This is what we have inherited. We cannot solve it in 1 year. We cannot even solve it in 3 or 5 years. But we are going to take these concerns forward. And we are going to do the best that we can to ensure that we take steps to remedy these concerns. We apologize on behalf of the president and on behalf of the minister. We want you to go back to those hospitals and help us to save Gambians. That's the approach that you use. You don't go to these doctors and tell them, go and just walk. You don't go to those doctors and disrespect them. You don't go to those people and disrespect them. And it starts with the health minister all the way to whoever it is. So I sit here today on behalf of a lot of people, and I appeal to our doctors and our nurses to think about the first creed that you have to save and preserve lives, and the thousands of Gambians that depend on you to do this under very difficult conditions. And we ask you to go back. And we promise you that we will, as Gambians, as your brothers and your sisters, both here in the diaspora and at home, we understand these things, and we will walk with you to do whatever we can to ensure that we help you and we try to mitigate these conditions that you walk under. If we can come together as a diaspora and as Gambians to get Yaya Jammeh 22 years of dictatorship out of that country, we can come together with our doctors and our nurses to build a healthcare system that we can all be proud of. So we are appealing to you, our doctors and our nurses. We appreciate you. We respect you. We understand the conditions that you work under. But we ask you to think about the duty of care, to think about the duty to preserve lives, and to go back and help us. To go back and help us. We understand that to have a health minister that said she has gone on a tour and has spoken to all of you, to come out and demotivate you in the way that she does, it's very sad. And we understand that. And we will work with you to advocate. We will work with you to advocate for change in that health system. We will work with you to advocate for change, for people that will come and recognize and appreciate you and work with you for the betterment of our healthcare system. We will do that. But we ask you, we appeal to you, we beg you to please go back and save lives. So let me just go through some of the things that these nurses and doctors tell me happens in those clinics in Gambia and in those in a hospital in Gambia. They tell me that when they're operating on people and they administer anesthesia, there's when you're administering anesthesia, there's a medication that you use to relax the muscles of the patient. There's another medication that you use to get them to sleep. And then the most vital one is the pain relief medication that you use so that they don't feel the pain. They tell me that in most of these hospitals, that pain relief is not available. So when they're operating on these patients, even though these patients are asleep and their muscles are relaxed, these patients can still feel the pain. And these doctors know that these patients can feel the pain, but there's not a lot they can do about this. They're trying to save lives. They're trying to save lives. So they tell me sometimes even that pain can kill these patients on an operating table. On an operating table, even that pain, because even though they are asleep, their muscles are relaxed, the pain, the other medicine, the pain relief medicine is not administered because they do not have it. It's a sad situation. It's a sad situation. And these doctors realize and recognize that. These doctors realize and recognize that. And that they try their best to mitigate these situations. So you tell me those people are not hardworking. When we bring in Cuban doctors who cannot even speak our language, who don't understand, who haven't even been to medical school, we bring them in. We give them cars. We give them accommodation. Yet our doctors and our nurses do not get anything. You see, I saw somebody write a medical emergency should be declared and doctors flown in from China and Cuba. That will not solve the problem. We have to empower our doctors. We have the people. We have the know-how. We have everything that we need. What these doctors need is support. What they need is specialist training. What they need is equipment. And what they need is a health minister that understands these concerns. Let's stop always talking about bring in Cubans, bring in Syrians, bring in this. People are still dying with all those professionals there. We have to walk from within. We have to walk with what we have. We have to empower what we have. So when you, this is a situation that we should not politicize. This is a situation that should not be politicized. These are lives at risk. These are Gambians who are suffering. Don't politicize this. Don't politicize this. Understand where these people are coming from. Understand their concerns. So let me just continue here with some of these things that I wanted to read so you know and understand the situation. Most pharmacies in the country are not even owned by doctors. They're owned by nurses. Most pharmacies in the country, in Gambia, are not owned by doctors. They're owned by nurses. And they tell me that even gloves are not available for nurses and doctors. So you don't have gloves. You don't have any sort of equipment. I mean, you have a duty to care. You have a duty to preserve lives. Yet you do not even have the equipment that it takes. You do not have gloves to protect yourself. How do you expect these people to save lives? How? Half of our people, it takes 7 years of medical school. That's no easy feat. 7 years of medical school. All of these people, most of them are abroad now, and they're doing so well. Most of our doctors that studied at the University of the Gambia, like I said before, they go to places like the US, to the UK, and all these other places, and they pass these exams to go into these residency, to have residencies. That tells you that we have what it takes. Gambians are intelligent. Gambians are intelligent, but what we lack is the empowerment and the respect and the support that we need and the infrastructure. This is our problem. This is our problem, the infrastructure. So let me just continue here. So think about this. A nurse earns about $4,000 per month, $4,000 per month, 4,000. That nurse is paid $300 night allowance, and that nurse is on maybe permanent night, or at least half of the month that person is on night duties. So how do you expect these people to function? We have a broken system. We have a broken system. And what we need is a health minister that understands that this system is broken. What we need is a health minister that will sit down with the nurses and the doctors and say to them, I understand. We appreciate your sacrifices. I am going to be your #1 advocate at the cabinet, in parliament, and outside to ensure that the budget of this country recognizes the priority that health is. In any country, when you do your research, in any country, good practice, they will tell you that for good practice, in terms of budgetary allocation, at least 15% of your country's budget should go to health. In Gambia, 7 I think the last time I checked, it was 7.5% of our budget that goes to health. At least 15% of our budget should be spent on health. At least 15%. So our healthcare is underfunded. Our healthcare is very much underfunded. And if the health minister does not understand that and is able to articulate that to Parliament, to our president, and by extension, empathize with the people who are still there trying to make the best out of this situation, then we have a problem. We have a serious problem. And when we talk to our doctors, when we talk to our nurses, our health minister has to understand this situation and is able to articulate them and is able to mitigate and is able to talk to these health professionals in a way that will motivate them. They are already demotivated. They are very demotivated. Imagine 22 years of mismanagement, 22 years of dictatorship, working under those very tough conditions. You feel that we have come out of this dark era. You have hope that the minister or whoever they're bringing to the health ministry will come in and recognize that these 22 years, this is what has happened in this ministry. Now I'm going to empower these doctors, these nurses and health professionals to be able to deliver. Instead of doing that, she insults and degrades them. And we have a lot of people sitting on social media doing the same thing, insulting and degrading these people. Our doctors and our nurses and our healthcare professionals deserve respect. They deserve understanding. They deserve empathy. They deserve recognition. You see those awards that they give during the independence celebration or whatever. How many doctors did Yaya Jammeh give those awards to? How many nurses got those awards, those national awards? That tells you the priority of a nation. If you go to other countries, their doctors and their nurses are recognized with national awards for their sacrifice, because it does take sacrifice to stay in Africa and work and preserve lives when you do not even have gloves, when the electricity goes off on the operating table and you take your mobile to be able to see what you're doing and to be able to work under those conditions. Those people deserve recognition. The health minister today should have been the first person to say to the president, I want you to recognize Dr. Samate, I want you to recognize Dr. This at the RVTH for their sacrifice, for their service to nation. Those national awards, the chunk of them should be given to our doctors, our nurses, and the people at the front line who help to preserve and save lives in that country. But you know why doctors are not recognized in our country? Because it's not a priority. It's not a priority. So we need to understand these issues. We need to try and do our best. And we need to approach these people from a position of understanding, from a position of empathy, not from a position of insults, from a position of dictating to them. No, it will not work. It will not work. So this, I was speaking to this healthcare professional, and she told me something that saddened me a lot. She said, "Mama, we all of us we were fighting. We were fighting against dictatorship because these were the conditions that we were living or working under. So we wanted so bad for Yaya Jammeh to go so that a new government will come that can understand and help us to provide for our people." I'm sorry, I have a cold, so I must do this. I have to do this, so just give me a minute. Oh. Sorry about that. Oh. So she told me, she said, we have been fighting so hard. We wanted so bad for a new government to come so that we can get a health minister that will understand the issues, a health minister that will help us to save lives. And she said, a health minister that will be able to articulate these things so that the Gambians, our brothers and sisters, will understand what is happening in this healthcare profession. And she said, for months, we did not even see the health minister at any health facility. She was not there. She did not visit any health facility for months, until all of us here started screaming and talking about it and saying, what is the health minister doing? Why is she not visiting these health facilities and finding out what is happening? And she said, but then she comes on, and these words she said to us, these words that she uttered will inspire more frustration from us. It demotivated us more. She said, because the population will then say, you see, it is our doctors that are stealing our medicines and they are not curing us. not realizing that we do not have what it takes. We do not have the equipment. We do not have the logistics or the support to be able to cure patients. So and I will say this again, to Sophie Lowe, to President Barrow, to anybody, approach is very important. The way you approach people, and I will even say it to my brothers and sisters also that are abroad, that are the back way also, that came through the back way to Europe, that are fighting for themselves now to try and solve their immigration status, etc. I will say to all of you, the approach is very important. The way that you approach people will determine how they respond to you. If you are disrespectful to anybody, those are the first impressions that that person takes with them. And it makes it very difficult for that person to be able to see you in any other light than what you have already given or what you have shown. First impressions are very important. So let's try as much as possible to be disciplined, to be measured in the way that we approach people, in the way that we try to solve our problems. We cannot solve our problems by being confrontational. I like talking to elders. I love interacting with people that will impart knowledge. And my grandmother or my granddad will always say this. He will say that gis nga lula yar ak teggin mayut ñàkka yar du la ko may. Lula yar ak teggin mayut, lula wax gu rafet mayut. Wax gu rafet rek ndox bu sedda la. Lum la mayut du la ko xañ. Waaye yara teggin lu bari, ñàkka yara teggin lu bari daf la koy xañ. You know what respect and being decent, what respect and being decent can make you achieve, or you can achieve from being respectful and decent. There's no way you can achieve that same result from being disrespectful. That's no way you can achieve that same result from insulting. So let's try with this, when we talk about this new Gambia mentality, this new Gambian, let's try to understand. Let's try to understand that discipline and self-respect, those things are reciprocal. When you give discipline, when you give self-respect, when you comport yourself in a certain way, you get results. You get results. Those same results you cannot get when you're indisciplined, when you do not show people respect, when you address people anyhow, when you think that you can be disrespectful and still get the results that you want to get. So I am appealing to you. I am appealing to you. Let's try as much as possible. Let's try as much as possible. Let's try as much as possible to interact with each other, to dialogue with each other in a respectful way. If you wouldn't want me to come and insult you, if you wouldn't want me to come and approach you in a certain way, please do not approach others in that way. If you do not want people to disrespect you, please do not disrespect people. If you do not understand people's issues, please do not take value positions that will just further aggravate the situation. we have to be able to talk, and this is why the last video I did, I told the foreign minister and the minister of interior that the solution to this migration problem cannot be achieved when they do not involve the people who are affected. And again, I will tell them the same thing. The solution to these doctors on strike cannot be achieved by talking at these doctors. You have to talk with these doctors. There's a big difference. When you talk at me, you're telling me what to do, how to think, what to feel. When you talk with me, you are listening to me, you are taking on board my concerns, and you are taking, or at least giving me the assurances that these concerns will be looked at and dealt with. So, President Barrow, we appeal to you. When you get back from the AU summit, sit down with these doctors, sit down with these nurses, sit down with these health professionals. And the first thing we want you to do, President Barrow, we want you to tell them thank you. We want you to tell them that we as Gambians, as well as you as our leader, appreciates their effort under very difficult circumstances. And you also appreciate, and we also appreciate, that they could have left like a lot of people did and went to Europe and everywhere else and worked and earned more money than they are earning in the Gambia. They have the qualifications and the profession to be able to do that. If you go to any embassy and present your certificate, there are countries that even take migrants based on their professions. And being a doctor or a nurse is one of the hottest professions on this earth. Because every country you go to, they're looking for professional doctors and nurses. So to have these people stay in Gambia under very difficult conditions, work under very difficult conditions, without any sort of government support, without a minister who is not empathetic to their problems, we have a problem, President Barrow. We have a problem. And you have to recognize that these doctors have a point. These doctors have a point. But we want you to remind them of their creed, of their duty to save and preserve lives. And we want you to appeal to them that despite the disrespect from the health minister, we want you to appeal to them, President Barrow, to go back to work. And we want you to promise them that you will listen to their concerns and you will do something to remedy those concerns. That's what these doctors need from us. That's what these doctors and nurses and these healthcare professionals need from you, President Barrow. And I want to appeal to the Gambians. We need a new Gambian. And the new Gambian is not the Gambian that will sit down on Facebook or on social media and continue to disrespect and insult. The new Gambian is the Gambian that is willing to be part of the national discourse in a decent, disciplined, informed, and measured way. The new Gambian is the Gambian that will do whatever it takes to help his or her country to develop. We cannot continue talking. We have to start acting. We have to start working together. When we come together as one, when we unite, we achieve great and wonderful things. When we wanted Yaya Jammeh to go, we came together as one Gambia. We came together as one Gambia, and we achieved the impossible. The whole world admires Gambia for achieving what they believe was impossible. That is what peaceful regime change from 22 years of dictatorship. You know why we did that? You know why we were able to achieve that? Because we came together. We had a unity of purpose. We were able to put aside our political, our tribal, whatever differences that we had. We were able to put those aside, and we came together to achieve what we wanted for our country. So when we come together, we can achieve wonderful things. We can do phenomenal things. But we are not going to be able to achieve those things if we continue what we're doing, if we continue this trend of insulting each other, if we continue this trend of not recognizing and appreciating talent, if we continue this trend of not appreciating our people, our own. Gambians are talented. Gambians can do so much. President Barrow, you need to have a directive out there in every ministry that they have to support Gambian entrepreneurs. They have to give contracts to Gambian entrepreneurs. They have to support Gambian businesses. They have to recognize Gambian talent. You cannot keep rewarding people that come from outside and you are not recognizing your own and rewarding your own. If you can provide Syrian doctors, if you can provide Cuban doctors with accommodation, with cars, and you cannot provide our own Gambian doctors with those same cars, and they're standing at Westfield, they're standing at Brikama, trying to get into taxis to go and save lives. Some of them are even more qualified than those Syrian and Cuban doctors that you're providing with accommodation and with cars. President Barrow, then we have a problem. And if your health minister cannot articulate these things to you so that you understand them, then you still have a bigger problem. You have a bigger problem. Because if your health minister cannot explain these issues to you, for you to be able to understand and appreciate them, and to be able to try and do something about them, then we have a problem. Then we have a serious problem. So let's try as much as possible. And I am appealing to you, President Barrow. There are lots of areas. We have teachers who have the same problem. Teachers who are working under very difficult conditions. We have nurses and doctors, and it's just over. It's everywhere. If you do not have the right people that you entrust with these positions to be able to do the work that is required to motivate a population, to motivate these professionals, then President Barrow, we have a problem. If you do not have these ministers that can explain to you what these teachers are going through, if you do not have the ministers that can explain to you what these doctors, these nurses are going through, then we have a problem. Then we have a serious problem. And this needs addressing. So the doctors, yes, they have serious concerns. The doctors, yes, they want to do the best, but they are constrained from doing that. And that's why they are crying out for help. The doctors are sick of 22 years of being insulted, being told they're incompetent. They want you to recognize, President Barrow, that if they are provided with the right environment, the right equipment, the right support and training, they can save lives, they can do their jobs, they can elevate our health system. And if your health minister cannot articulate these things or these points to you so that you can understand, then we have a problem. And you need to get people that can go and talk to these doctors and make them understand. But most importantly, President Barrow, I think you yourself now, because this is a crisis, you yourself need to talk to these doctors. And you need to start by appreciating and apologizing on behalf of all of us. Because for 22 years, we have provided these doctors with the worst of salaries. We have, on top of that, asked them to save lives, and on top of that, disrespected them. Oh, sorry. So yes, they deserve our apology, and they deserve for us to recognize that they're doing a wonderful job for us. So I'm appealing to you, especially my brothers and sisters on social media. Do not take what Minister Sophie Lowe has said, that these doctors steal medicines. These doctors prescribe medicines. They do not have access to medicines. The people that have access to medicines was that same Sophie Lowe that was at the pharmacy at the time. The people that have access to medicines are the nurses who take those medicines to administer to the patients. And I can tell you, from the nurses to the auxiliary nurses, to the cleaners, to the doctors, everybody is demotivated because there is no equipment to be able to do their jobs. There are no medications to be able to do their jobs. So when you sit here in the comfort of your home and insult these professionals who went to school, medical school for 7 years, did their residency, instead of leaving the country, they're in that country trying to save lives, not even having gloves to wear, in an operating room, and the light goes off and they take their mobiles out and try and save lives. Those people deserve recognition. Those people do not deserve our insults. Those people do not deserve our insults. Those people deserve recognition. Those people deserve our respect. And those people need for us to work with them to be able to make sure that we get the right facilities for our people. So let me just see. They tell me here, yeah, that they employ Syrian doctors and all of these people and give them cars and everything. And they've just started a car and housing loan that is only given to some doctors, not even so. So they've provided now, they said, a car and housing loan. That's not even enough, but it's just given to some doctors. And this, and you know, creating this divide and rule. So some doctors have access to car and housing loans, whilst others don't. So these are some of the issues. They have a building at Hagan Street. So the government rented a building at Hagan Street because doctors were complaining. We live in Birkama, we live in all this, we live in Birkama, we live in Busumbala, all these places. To get to work is very difficult. So they hired they rented this house in Banjul at Hagan Street. And if you go to the house and see the conditions in that house and the amount of doctors that the government wants to live in that house, you will be shocked. The house is located at Hagan Street. I think I'll get one of our people to go over there and do a video and show us the kind of conditions that they expect our doctors to live in when they're providing very good, decent housing for the Syrian doctors and the Cuban doctors, and giving our doctors a house at Hagan Street for them to share and to live in on the you would not even believe. So definitely, we need to do something. We need to do something. And definitely the way to do it is not to continue to insult each other. It's not to continue to talk at each other. We have to be able to talk with each other. We have to be able to talk to it with each other. We cannot continue this. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help us. And so I will finish this video like I started before by first appealing to our doctors. But I will first tell our doctors that we appreciate you. We appreciate the efforts that you do on our behalf to save and preserve our lives. We appreciate and understand the very difficult conditions that you work under. Without equipment, without support, without medications that will help patients, yet you still persevere. So we understand that, and we appreciate that. But you took a creed, you took an oath. You swore to save and preserve lives. And so we are begging you, we're appealing to you to go back and save and preserve those lives. And we will become your advocates. We will ensure that this does not end here. And I'm appealing to the NGOs in Gambia. Sit down with the doctors, take their plight forward. Ensure that we have we pressure the government to value health, to put the resources that are necessary into health. That is what we need to do. We cannot keep blaming our doctors. We cannot keep blaming others. We have to do something about this. And I hope the NGOs in Gambia, the groups in Gambia will take this forward. We'll sit with the doctors and appeal to them and tell them, you have a duty to save and preserve lives. Yes, we understand. Of course we understand. We understand your issues and we appreciate your issues. But we want you to go and save lives. And let's continue fighting whilst you're saving lives. The doctors, and most of the doctors that I spoke to, they're not happy sitting, not saving lives. They're not happy not doing their jobs. But they cannot continue. This position is untenable. They cannot continue trying to save lives when they do not have the equipment, when they themselves are not protected. Do you think about it. Do you think that a doctor will steal a pair of gloves and take it to their clinic or whatever, and then they come to RVTA to save a life, and they do not even have a glove to put on, and they use their hands knowing the risk? They use their hands to save lives using their bare hands without any sort of gloves. You think a doctor will do that? Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not logical. They themselves know the risk involved in what they do. They themselves know that the lack of gloves can even give them diseases, and they can have all these diseases transmitted by just the lack of gloves. Yet they wake up every morning and go to those hospitals and not have gloves and not have aprons. Yet they go in and they still save lives and they still walk under those conditions. Hana nak lo bañ sa bopa. Lo bañ sa bopa. Huh? Do sàcca li nga xam ne yow si sa bopa moo la protect. Do sàcca li nga xam ne yow si sa bopa ëllëg su fekkee ne jëfandewuloo ko yow si sa bopa mën nga see jëlee feebar. Nañ leen waxante dëgg loolu kenn du ko def. Kenn bañut boppam pour expose boppam to risk. kenn bañut boppam pour expose boppam to risk. So bàyyi leen di toog fii di wax ne docteur yi ñoo sàcca gloves yi ñoo sàcca li billahi suñ amoon glove yooyu dinañ ko sol ñu protect seen boppa duñ ko ñàkkaa sol si lopitaan bi di put seen boppa at risk. bàyyi leen li ngeen a wax moytu leen li ngeen a wax moytu leen tooñ moytu leen tooñ yéen a ngee tooñ yéen miy toog di saaga docteur yi di saaga noos yi di leen wax ne dañ sàcca foog nga ne nit dina sàcca ba sàcca loo xam ne yow sa boppa daf laa jàppale yow si sa boppa daf laa aar buñ ko amoon def ko buñ ko amoon use ko kon bàyyi leen seen xel bàyyi leen seen xel bu baax. And again, I'm just appealing to the elders in Gambia, to our community-based organizations, our NGOs, opinion leaders in Gambia. Sit down with these doctors, appeal to them. Tell them that you will become their partners in this fight to modernize our health system, to upgrade our health system, to save lives. That's what these doctors want. They want to save lives. They want to work under good conditions. They want to be able to provide the best care for the patients. And they are being frustrated because that's not available. And the minister that came, that they thought, that they hoped will be able to help them achieve this goal, is also demotivating them. Sit down with these doctors. Let's be the partners. Let's partner with these doctors and help them achieve their goals. And so I will just appeal again to our Gambian doctors. You have the duty to save and preserve lives. I depend on you. We depend on you to save and preserve our lives. We ask you to go back and save and preserve lives. And we will ensure, I personally, the little that I can do to partner with you, to highlight what is happening in the health sector, I will ensure that we continue to stand with you to ensure that the government listens. This is our government. They will listen because they have to listen to us. We all have a stake in this government. And like I said, if it takes going and standing there and banging on the doors, hello, knock, knock, that's what we will do for them to listen. And we promise you that we will do that. We will fight this fight with you. We will not let you be alone in this fight. You, our doctors, our medical professionals. We appreciate you. We respect you. We empathize with your situation and your position. And we thank you for your service. We thank you for all that you do to preserve and save our lives under very difficult conditions. Kon ma emale fi video bi ba benen like I said tay mom dama soj be waye munuma ñaka ñew pour wax li nekk di xew ni ñu wax ci and the reason I spoke in English is because the healthcare issue has gone beyond Gambia fi nekk ni. It's no longer just a Gambian issue. We have to be able to influence. We have to be able to table these issues so that people understand what is happening. And we can only do that if we can speak the language that they speak. There are a lot of groups who are trying to advocate for an upgrade in our healthcare system. And our videos, people like me and other people who have always been here speaking on behalf of Gambians, these videos can be used by people who can appeal to hospitals in their countries, if they live abroad, etc., to be able to help upgrade and help our healthcare infrastructure. And that's why we have to speak the language that they will also understand, so that when they see these videos, they understand our situation and the challenges that our doctors and the medical professionals are having to deal with on a daily basis. So again, I thank all of you for being here, for listening, and like I always say as well, let's try and appreciate our people. Let's try and appreciate our professionals. 7 years of medical school is no easy feat. That takes a lot. 7 years of sitting down and going to school and learning, that's a lot. That's a lot of sacrifice. So to be able to go through all of that and then come and try to save lives and not have the support, not have the equipment, not have the infrastructure to be able to do that, that is difficult. That is very difficult. And we have to appreciate and recognize our professionals. And I hope, President Barrow, that next time you're giving out awards, you will also choose, that next time you're giving out awards, you will also choose doctors, you will choose nurses. You will recognize these people for their sacrifice. That's very important. We have to try and recognize our people. We have to appreciate and recognize talent. That's very important. So thank you very much. And we will continue, like I said, the dialogue. If it requires going back, even going to Gambia, to be able to speak to our nurses and doctors with other religious and opinion leaders, that's what we will do. That's what we will do, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Fini butelo, yamono metilo.